Welcome to Real-ationship Goals, a podcast all about the realities of healthy relationships. Real-ationship Goals is a project of the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual violence or harassment and is seeking support, services, or needs more information, links to resources and our hotline number can be found in the description. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of their organizations or affiliates.
Okay, welcome back to Real-ationship Goals podcast. You made it to episode 15. Congratulations, we're glad that you are here with us for the last official episode of season 4. Wow, that we just did four seasons of the podcast. I love it. My name is Blythe. I'm Ariana.
I'm Kyla.
And I'm Allie. Okay, I have our story for today. So I love my brother very much. He's 3 years younger than me, and I love so many things about him. And one thing about us is we are very, very different. And sometimes things sort of like exacerbate those differences or really emphasize those differences. And so I don't think he listens to this podcast, but even if he did, I don't think it matters. But and so a few years ago, I think like probably 4 to 6 years ago, there was a lot of things kind of like going on in the world, and my brother and I, that is one area that we do not see, like, we're very different. We have different beliefs around a lot of different things, and things that sort of to me felt like really important and felt like, how can we even be in relationship if we don't agree about this, right? And so like over the course of several years, I just felt, I never said anything to him, but I was feeling like very eye rolly. I was feeling like a lot of like condescension of like, I can't believe you would think this, like, I am better than you. I am right for thinking those things. Though I wasn't thinking like I'm better than you. I was thinking I was right. But it really led to what I would now call sort of like contempt for him and in our relationship. And because we live many states away and see each other pretty irregularly, it didn't ever come up, like, or it didn't ever like physically like in the same space. I mean, I was feeling it, but it never like was a conversation or anything I said to him or anything like that. But I don't think that contempt has to be like necessarily vocalized, right? It can be something that lives on the inside and sort of it is definitely manifesting itself. And so I felt very sad at different points about like where our relationship was, and we're in a different place now. But anyway, that was a real that contempt was difficult for our relationship, and that's on me.
Thank you for sharing that story with us. Yeah, that was very tough and difficult, but it happens. So this episode we are talking about contempt, and what contempt can look like sometimes is the thought of I am better than you and you are lesser than me. And not necessarily everybody might not resonate with that and like necessarily like think like that, like, oh, I'm better than this person is lesser than me. But contempt is deemed as very unhealthy and poisonous to a relationship and can feel that disconnection and prolong in a negative manner. Contempt usually looks like elongated negative thoughts about a person or even groups of people. So in today's episode, we want to just like address how to approach that uncomfortable feeling of contempt and address like the root connections and how contempt can arise in our relationships, and just like also speak on things and how to approach that situation in a healthy manner.
Yeah, I was just telling Blythe and Ariana and Kyla before we started recording that like I was really struggling about what story to come up with contempt. It was like I looked at the outline and I was like, I can't believe they gave me contempt. Like, that's hard. Like, I was like, have I watched a TV show where this is evident or whatever? Because I was really focused on kind of like the definition, which is like the Gottman Institute, which we've talked about before, their definition that I'm better than you, you're lesser than me. And I was like, I don't really think about people in that way. But then I started thinking about like, and reading about like what contempt can look like. And I was like, oh yeah, I got a story or three, you know? So contempt looks like disrespect, mocking, like often with sarcasm, condescension, like I talked about in my story, eye rolling, hostile humor, name calling, mimicking, sneering. It conveys disgust or superiority and superiority, especially, and this is kind of like where it really clicked for me thinking about my brother was especially in like moral, ethical, or characterological ways, like someone's character. And so anyway, I think like like Ariana said, like you might not feel like this applies to you, but I would encourage you to stick with us, because it was like once I got past the actual definition, it was like, okay, yeah, let's talk about this, you know.
Yeah, which I love that your story I think gives a good example of maybe oftentimes, or maybe I just resonate with it, like contempt looks like I am right and you are wrong. And it's not just like I am right that like bees fly at an average of 12 miles per hour and you think it's 13, but like I'm sorry, that's the first thing that came to mind.
All right.
Fun fact. But like that I am right about something that is, either whether it feels really important or really big, or like I do this in a way that is right and you do this in a way that's wrong or that's harmful. And because I'm right and you are wrong, therefore like, there's like some connotation of like superiority. And I think also kind of like you were saying, Allie, like contempt, like you might not even actively think like I'm right, you're wrong, I'm better, you're worse, but like our actions might communicate that, such as through like, condescension, eye rolling, mimicking, or sneering or things. Being a human is hard. What, I want to ask something along the lines of like, or maybe dig a little bit deeper before we kind of talk about like, either like how contempt, goes from unhealthy to abusive, or like what do we do about contempt? But like, where does contempt like come from? And maybe we've already established that and we can edit this out. I just want to make sure we cover our bases to like, like contempt doesn't either like come out of nowhere. This is how it can show up.
I think it's like contempt really plays the long game, right? So it might start as something that like is like, I can't believe you did that, or I can't believe you think that, or whatever, or said that. And then like the longer you sit with it and the more sort of that similar thing happens, or that belief or ideology or whatever is voiced more and more, right? Then it's it sort of can like any emotion that we sort of like bottle in, it can come up all at once. Or contempt, I think there are some times that it's like you can have contempt for someone because it's like I saw someone, this isn't true, but let's say I saw someone on the walking their dog on the side of the road on the sidewalk, and I see them fully kick that dog, right? That's pretty okay. That didn't happen. I'm just using an example of like that's pretty immediate contempt for me. Like it's like, okay, what you did is wrong, and I do not respect what you did, and so I don't even know that person. That's immediate contempt, right? But like, I think what kind of we're talking about a little bit more is not this kind of like one act contempt, but like this building, because anyway, so I think that it plays the long game a lot of times, unless there is like an incident where it's like, oh no, this is a line in the sand that this is a deal breaker kind of contempt,
That's making me think about like conversations that we have a lot with students about respect. Right, because I think contempt and disrespect are very much intertwined.
Mhm.
And how we, like, I firmly believe and like often talk with students about like who deserves respect. Like, do all people deserve respect? Do people have to earn respect? And I was thinking about this because of your dog example. It's just like, if somebody would kick a dog, like, no. But about how like maybe like a hard thing with contempt and like with disrespect, is that like at the end of the day, right? Like all people like deserve to be treated with an element of respect that like honors that you are a human and you have full dignity. Even if you kicked a dog, like you deserve like you like deserve to have your human dignity and worth honored, like full stop. Like you don't deserve to like that I would kick you because you kicked a dog or something like that. Like I might feel like I want to kick you. But yeah, that like maybe an issue with contempt is that we can like externalize like whether like a conflict or an issue that we have with someone to like being against that person versus like against that a person and like their essence and being versus like against like actions or something that is part of them but also like kind of separate from their I don't know if that makes sense, but like because I'm just thinking of like in your example of like, and not to stay too long in the dog on the dog example, but like it's a good thing to like if we like see things that are like that wasn't good, I don't agree with that. Like we're not saying like, oh, we live in kumbaya and like you have to be totally okay with everyone's whether it's worldview or their actions or something like that, but like just to emphasize that ultimately like it's a really unhealthy posture whether or not we realize it or communicate it to have like I am better, you are worse, or I am superior, you are inferior, or something like that.
So kind of like going off of that, then like, what do you do about contempt? Like if you're wanting to like remain in relationship with this person, what are some sort of like fixes or antidotes? What do we do when we start feeling those feelings or experiencing that?
I mean, I think kind of the way to, or one of the ways to prevent contempt and then how to address it. Sometimes I think it might even just sneak up on you.
Sure.
Like you don't really realize it and it just kind of snowballs. Kind of like, especially as you were saying, like, oh, it's a little thing here, a little thing that was said there, like this action here. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm actively resentful like, of you because of this. And that's impacting our relationship. So like from the start, if you recognize that like that action that you are like, oh, like that's not cool. I don't like that. Like calling that out, addressing it, opening it openly and honestly, from that point. Or if you don't realize it, and then like I said, you've kind of snowballed a little bit further and you're actively recognizing these feelings of resentment and contempt within yourself, of then opening that like conversation of I'm feeling this way. Like a very honest statement about how you're feeling. It's less of a you are doing this or you are making me feel this way. It's because that's a very aggressive and confrontation, like a negatively confrontational, conflicting way to take it, but more of just a I am feeling this way. This is what I think I need, or I would like for this to happen. But keeping it as an open space where it's a conversation rather than like an attack of I'm feeling this way. I would like for this situation to look like this, or I would like to discuss this, and then opening the floor so that it's like an equal playing field. What do you think about that? How are you feeling? Like I said, turning it into an open discussion.
Yeah, I love the Gottman Institute, mostly because Allie talks about them, or has talked about them a lot. And it's a good connection. And they, in one of their articles, have a good line, Kyla, to connect what you're saying of like, that oftentimes we can express contempt because like you believe that you're being disrespected. And if you accept that, then you're giving up on your integrity. And so like contempt coming from a place, or like the response of contempt coming from a place of like, I feel like I have a need that's not being met, or I'm unappreciated, or I'm unacknowledged. Like, and then that causes me to like lash out. Like if I don't know, like if you're a parent or something like that, and I don't know, like you, like if you're a parent and you like, and you have a partner and you ask your partner like, hey, can you, I don't know what you would ask them to do, like do this, or like, can you help me with this, or do that? And they say like, or like, not right now, like I've had a really long day at work, like I just need to sit here. Like can they create this feeling of like, you're kidding me? Like, I'm doing this all by, I feel unappreciated. I feel like I'm doing this all alone. Therefore, I'm going to lash out of like, what do you mean you've had a long day at work? I've had a really long day and I'm working my butt off. Like, why can't you do the thing that I'm doing and like put in as much effort as me? Versus like, and then the antidote with what Kyla is saying is to slow down and be like, I feel so exhausted and I feel like I'm doing this alone. I understand that you need some space, maybe not right now, but like, can we talk about what it looks like to build in some rest, but also like, we gotta get dinner on the table, or something like that. I think I hadn't thought about contempt in that way, but like that was a poignant point and like why it's so important then for us to, instead of the snapping and the biting, of like, like, what do you mean you can't do that? Or like, why are you doing this like that? You're a da, 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 da. But yeah, slowing down of like, yeah, expressing this is why the thing that you're doing or you're saying like is hurting or is something like that. Which is hard to slow down and do in the moment.
And also, like, if you think of another dynamic in our relationships, like with friends, with family, or even a romantic partner, like even communication styles, you might not necessarily agree with another person's communication style, and like that might make you angry, and like you may have like brought that up in a conversation before, like, hey, I really, really wish we had consistent communication, but I also understand that you are not a great texter, you're not a great caller, but in order for like our bond to stay connected, I would really wish and would like if we could like work on that more. And that person might respond like, hey, I'm not in the space to actually do that right now. And I hope you will respect that. And just to like basically focus on not attacking that person's character. Like, hey, you could want two different things and that is totally okay, but not to like basically go in attack mode because this person is not giving the thing that you want.
So, yeah. I think, yeah, we should also make a distinction that like, for the most part, like contempt, like when it shows up in a relationship, like is like an unhealthy thing. But that contempt can also have like a very abusive nature to it, right? Like when it is intertwined and when it looks like belittling, or put downs and degrading and like really coming at someone, and trying to make them feel less than, like that is like emotional abuse, and that's not okay. And it doesn't have to be like abusive. It can exist in like the unhealthy realm, but like just to emphasize that, that yeah, that's not a thing that's good or okay. Yeah. Any final?
Just that I think that, you know, like every other thing, since this is our last episode of this season, sort of, the last episode where you'll be hearing from all of us.
Yeah.
I think that this, like, contempt is, like many of the other things you've heard about this season, like really difficult to navigate in a relationship. And I think contempt is particularly difficult because of its kind of this slippery slope from unhealthy to abusive. And so as we've said with all of the other things, and particularly when something like moves from unhealthy to abusive, like you are, you know, we talked about it in the loneliness episode, like you need to do kind of like what is best for you and to invest in yourself. And if that means like leaving that relationship or doing what is best for you, then that's okay. And just like, I just want to acknowledge that everything we've talked about this season is like, the reason we talk about it is because it's like uncomfortable to experience these things in relationships and all types of relationships. And so, you know, thanks for sticking with us through this sort of like uncomfortable season, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So with that, I can jump us into our relationship goal, your relationship goal this week and in all coming weeks. And kind of just as mentioned earlier, that when you encounter, whether it's a conflict or an irk or just a rub in one of your relationships, to lean into that with I statements of like, hey, I feel this when this happens, and then an invitation of like, can we process that? Can we talk through it? Instead of jumping right into an accusation with the hope of that leading right and within your relationship to a culture of like respect and admiration and fondness. And with that, Kyla has our recommendation.
Yeah, I'll say, so we're recording this in relatively early April, but it will reach you slightly later than that. So I'm hoping my recommendation will still be relevant. But something that's been really good for me the last like week or so. The weather right now is just starting to get warmer and the sun is out. And so my recommendation is to spend at least a little bit of time like each day outside. Maybe the sun is out. Maybe it is better for you to wait until the sun is not out anymore, especially if it's May and it's already like 100 degrees. I understand. But I become an entirely different person whenever it gets warmer and the sun is shining. I just feel like I am significantly happier and I'm just in a better mood. So this, I mean, the vitamins in the sun are real. And they help me at least drastically. So that's my recommendation. Spend some time outside, hopefully in the sun.
I love it. Yeah, thank you for being with us for episode 15, for episodes 1 through 14. And just this season, we have loved it and it's been fun. So thanks, y'all.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Real-ationship Goals. This episode was produced by the Prevention and Education Department of the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. You can follow us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention. See you next time.